My old patterns are back. Well, on everybody's healing journey, there are going to be times when everything goes out the window and suddenly you react, you regress, you slide back into old patterns such as texting your ex, even though you said you would never do it again, saying something you regret, or quitting something when it starts to scare you. And you will feel tempted to say things like, nothing's changed, I knew this wouldn't work, yada, yada, yada. Nope. Just promise me you will listen to today's episode. Today's episode is a short and sweet truth bomb where I'm revealing exactly why reverting back to old patterns is not only inevitable, it is an absolutely crucial part of healing. It's a sign that you're healing. And we're going to dive right into this right after this intro. Welcome to the Inner Child Podcast. Now with 2 million downloads, I help high achievers recover from painful relationships and childhood trauma. Let's heal together on Season 2 of the Inner Child Podcast. Hello, new besties, former besties. Welcome back to the Inner Child Podcast. I am your host, Gloria Zhang. I'm a therapist, dating coach, and author. And today we have a shorter bite-sized episode on a very common phenomenon that is going to happen to you, if not already, on your healing journey. And this is when your old patterns creep back in, or you react very suddenly, or you suddenly feel like you are acting like your old self again. What is happening? How do we get through this? I'm going to answer all of those questions today, so not to worry. And by the way, yes, the grand opening of my new 5-day accelerator, The Lovable Woman, is over now. Womp, womp, womp. But if you missed it, that is okay, because this brand new 5-day program, which is only $12, is still available for the general public, cheaper than the price of a single meal. It is for high-achieving women who are tired of feeling like a doormat in relationships, and they want to feel lovable on the inside out to attract the relationship of their dreams. Head on to my website or click the link in the show notes. I'm super proud of that 5-day course, and we've gotten a ton of amazing feedback from those of you besties who've already jumped in, so highly recommend it. But now we're going to focus on today's episode. And the thing about this is, if you don't really understand how to navigate regression on your healing journey, then we tend to just stop our healing altogether because we think that it means we're never going to change, or we think it means that the healing isn't working, right? And so I want you to identify, first and foremost, is there some kind of belief you have that healing from trauma or healing relationship wounds is the same as cutting out a splint and then just tossing it away, and once it's gone forever, right? And so therefore, if you start going back to old patterns, then it somehow means that the healing's not working. A lot of us probably think that way, and that's because of exactly that. It's that medical analogy. When we think of the word healing, it does come from medical terminology, right? You heal something, you're good. You hopefully never have to go back to that specific issue again. But emotional and trauma healing is a little bit different because our traumatic responses aren't a physical thing that we just cut out and toss in the trash, but these are mechanisms and behaviors that for a long time have been embedded in our personality. A lot of it feels like who we are. And so we have to think about it a little differently. Now, recently, I talked about this on one of my soulmate coaching calls, and on the spot, I came up with a really great analogy, and I was really proud of myself because this analogy really helped these folks to understand what was really going on. So here it is, okay? And by the way, I do have a call to action at the end with some really great tips on how to work on this. So here's the analogy. Have you ever done a factory reset on your phone or calculator or electronic? Right? And so this is when things are not working on your device And so you have this option of resetting all the settings back to when it first came out of the factory reset. Well, your familiar trauma responses, kind of like the default factory settings on your phone. When you are in a situation where you don't have enough bandwidth to consciously choose a response, for example, you're dealing with multiple stressful things at once and you're overwhelmed. You didn't get enough sleep that night and you're running on empty. Or there's 5 people talking to you at once and you're kind of reacting, right? Or you have some sort of sensory overstimulation happening. When you can't choose, your brain will actually resort back to its default settings as a backup plan. It will go back to the people pleasing. It will go back to the self-sabotage because those old trauma responses are still saved in your brain as information. Why? Because of what we've been talking about for the last 3 years on this podcast, right? Those old trauma responses saved you and kept you alive at some point in your life. So they do work. They are effective in certain situations. And so when your brain has run out of options or it can't cope in the moment, it's going to fall back on its default settings, just like a factory reset. Now, this is super helpful, isn't it? Oh, now it makes sense, right? I can see the light bulb moments going off here. Because it's important to make it not as personal and see these trauma responses not as I'm a piece of shit, but this is just a survival instinct. And my brain and body are doing the best that it can right now. And it happens to me, it happens to my clients, it happens to everybody. But the difference is that now we have the ability to not stay in that space. We can get out of it and we can choose differently next time. And so the amount of times or the frequency that we resort to these past trauma responses gets less and less and less over time. And I do believe that technically it is possible that you could get to a point where, it never happens again. But if it does, there's nothing wrong with it because it doesn't mean anything about you. Okay, so back to the situation. Well, Gloria, what if I've done something to ruin a relationship or cause a conflict or damage an opportunity I had? I'm not done yet. There's a little bit more. Back to the situation. So, okay, you didn't have the capacity to choose a different response this time, and that's okay, right? What's done is done. The second best thing, if we can't choose differently, which is the first best thing, the second best thing is how we deal with our blunder. Are we taking responsibility? Are we reflecting on it and trying to remedy the situation? And the irony of this is that most of the time, how we deal with our mistakes is actually more powerful than getting it right the first time because it shows you and it shows others that it's okay to be human and it's okay to make mistakes because it makes you more human and it makes you more respected. And I'm going to give a couple of examples here. A very common one was because I work with a lot of single moms and single parents. And for them, finding a healthy relationship is really important to them because they are also choosing a role model for their children, right? And so we want to get it right. And one of the things I hear often from parents is, I reacted in the situation with my daughter or son. I feel terrible about it, but I can't take the words back. What do I do? There is nothing more powerful than being able to witness your parent or caregiver owning up to their mistake, acknowledging how they made you feel, and changing their behavior. Because it shows your child that, number one, nobody is perfect. And by seeing that you are not perfect, but you are taking your power back in that situation, that it's okay for your child to make mistakes too, and that your child will not grow up with the burden of perfectionism because they got to observe that role modeled by you. And number two, it can bring you closer together to your child for them to hear you say, I made a mistake. I'm sorry that I made you feel XYZ. Here's what mommy's going to do differently instead. That is infinitely more powerful to a child than being raised by a parent who is just perfect all the time because, well, it doesn't even exist. Imagine how impactful it would have been for you growing up to be able to witness your parent take accountability for their mistake, apologize, and take positive steps forward. That would have been even more healing and life-changing for you than anything else. Right? So that's one example. Another example is you gave up on your yoga routine that you said you were going to start. So you simply say to yourself, okay, I stopped my routine for 2 weeks because I had all these negative thoughts about myself. But that's okay because I'm realizing that I want to start again and I forgive myself and I'm just going to pick up again today. That's it. If you reacted to somebody else or in a relationship, you simply say, I acknowledge that I overreacted by yelling or saying this. And I want to take responsibility for causing this rift between us, and I'm actively working on doing better. Or what can I do to show you that I really care? Simple, easy, effective. You see how powerful it is to take ownership without beating yourself up over it. I know we talked a bit about that last week. It's super powerful. All right, so we're going to wrap this up with our call to action, right? So call to action number one, just re-listen to this episode, right? Of what I said about that factory reset example and kind of just accepting that, hey, you know what? I have these survival instincts. And sometimes when I am overwhelmed or unable to make a fully conscious effort, my brain is going to do what brains do. It's going to go to a previous coping mechanism and it's going to fall back on that. And it doesn't mean anything about me. In fact, the reason why this is such a crucial part of healing is so that you can catch yourself doing it and choose differently next time. Okay? It's inevitable and it's a really important part of healing. You catch yourself doing it so that you can choose differently next time without beating yourself up over it. And that is part of the medicine of doing this healing work. So that's number two, being compassionate with your trauma responses and not making it mean any more than it already does. Number three, call to action. The second most powerful thing that you can do to heal is simply take ownership for what happened and make amends towards choosing differently next time. That's it. One of my favorite quotes in the whole world is, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. So start right now. Okay, my loves, I hope you enjoyed this short and sweet episode, and I hope that this helped you gain some insight and stop that mental thought pattern that happens when we do react in a way that we wish that we didn't. And just know that there's nothing to feel bad about. You acknowledge what happened, you move on, and now you understand a little bit more about why these mechanisms are still marked as survival instincts in your body. And it's okay. If this was helpful, take a screenshot and share this on Instagram. You can tag me or let me know at by Gloria Zhang. I would love to hear from you. I adore my community and I'm hoping to create more connections and conversations in the future as this goes on. So have a beautiful day and an abundant life, and I will see you in the next episode. Mwah! Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in, bestie. I've got something for you. If you think this show deserves a 5-star review, we'll send you my free Inner Child Starter Kit as a thank you for your support, which contains exclusive wallpapers and resources for you to download. To get your kit, just upload a screenshot of your review on Apple or Spotify to my webpage, bygloriazhang.com/reviews. The link is also in the show notes. There you can also check out my healing sessions and programs at bygloriazhang.com. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast, and I will meet you in the next episode. Mwah!